It's the Notch 6 Podcast, episode number 3. In this episode, I sit down with Mike Reagan and have an interesting conversation, Mike being the head of the Lionel Service Department. We catch up on O-Gauge news and events from around the country. And hey, if somebody hasn't told you yet, it's York Week.
This is the Notch 6 online podcast. Notch 6 is the podcast dedicated to O-Gauge trains. Whether you're collecting, operating, or just getting started, Notch 6 is your home for O-Gauge news, events, and interviews. Now here is your host, Derek Thomas.
Welcome to the Notch 6 Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Thomas. Glad to have you along for episode number 3. If you're new to the show, Notch 6 is your home for O-Gauge news, events, whether you're collecting, operating, new to the hobby. If you've been around for a long time, the Notch 6 Podcast is the place for O-Gauge news, events, and some really fun interviews. And this month is no exception. I've got a great interview with Mike Reagan, head of Lionel Service, that we're going to share with you in a little bit. But before that, let's hop on over to the news desk real quick and knock down the news and events before we go too far.
Keeping you up to date on everything that's coming down the tracks in the world of O-Gauge. It's time for the Notch 6 News Desk. The News Desk is brought to you by the Lionel Collectors Club of America. Visit lionelcollectors.org for all the latest LCCA news.
Welcome to the News Desk for the month of April 2013. Let's see, there's a lot to talk about, but a lot I can't tell you yet because the fact that this is releasing during York Week. There are certain things that I've been told that I can't talk about yet, but I'll put it to you this way. It's going to all come out by the end of the week, and then we'll have some interesting tidbits to talk about for the May episode of the Notch 6 Podcast. One of the big things that's on the horizon is going to be a news story that's related to Lionel. While I can't tell you a lot of specifics, and why I don't think it's going to make a big deal in terms of everything that's going on at Lionel, it's definitely worth paying attention to this week. There's going to be some interesting news coming down the pipeline from Lionel. Along with that news, the Lionel Volume 1 2013 catalog is going to hit the internet and be on the tables at York this week. The MTH catalog also releases this week, although hard copies will not be available at York due to some issues with the catalog being printed, but I'm sure that'll be on your dealer shelves here in the next few weeks. Atlas O has already made a few announcements. Let's see, new announcements: 40-foot steel reefers and new road numbers, new paint schemes on their bulkhead flat cars, and new Freightliner tractor trailer sets. And of course, after York, we always have the slew of new announcements from some of the smaller cottage industries. Always interesting to see what shows up during York Week. Let's see what else is going on in my neck of the woods. Relatively quiet month. New to me this month is I picked up a 32-inch Bowser turntable that I've already got dropped into the layout, which haven't told you a lot about my layout yet. The layout is the Conrail and Western. If you hunt around the O-Gauge forum, there's a few pictures floating around, and I'm sure I'll post a few pictures on our Facebook page at some point here in the near future. It's basically a high rail layout, although I love to incorporate post-war accessories. The layout is completely command control running the legacy system, although I would like to incorporate DCS at some point. I just haven't gotten that far down the pipeline yet. Mostly new equipment, mostly Conrail related, but I'll be honest, I have a huge soft spot for big steam locomotives, so you'll see a Scale J running around, a Chesapeake and Ohio Mallet, a Union Pacific Challenger, and a couple of other things that happen to make appearances. So with the addition of the new turntable, that means I can finally turn a Challenger around on the layout without too much trouble. Now it's just a matter of getting the Bowser turntable up to my standards in terms of getting it to work properly without hanging up. So that's kind of what's going on over in my world. Had the chance to hold a $28,000 Blue Comet this month at work, which was interesting. So for you standard gauge guys that listen to the show, what made this special? Normal 400E Blue Comet, but a cream stripe on the running board, which is one of, I think, 4 or 5 that are actually known to exist. So it's one of those things. I'm a high rail guy, but I have the utmost respect and can appreciate the significance of such a rare piece, and definitely fun to look at it and hold it and study it. and it is off to a new home, and it will be well cared for. So that's kind of what's going on over there. Again, it is York Week, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to talk about for May, but we're going to keep the news and events short and sweet. We're coming into the summer months here pretty quick. I know convention registration is open, I think, for the TCA and the LCCA. So if you're planning your summer trips, now is the time to do it. And both of those websites, the LCCA, which is lionelcollectors.org, and the TCA website have information on convention registration. So now's the time to start looking into those things. Before I go too much further, too, I want to take a second and stop and explain for those listeners who might be new to the hobby. I've said it's York Week quite a bit, and I know there's listeners out there that are going, what is York? York is the Eastern Division meet of the Train Collectors Association that is held in York, Pennsylvania twice a year, once in the spring and once in the fall at the York Fairgrounds. And if you're a train collector or have any interest in toy trains, this is the place to be. The only requirement for you to attend the meet is that you're a current member of the Train Collectors Association and that you're willing to pay the $10 it takes to get in. But if you've never been before, I went to my first meet last year and ended up going twice, went to Spring York and Fall York, and just had an absolute blast. If you've never seen it before, it's something you need to see. One more thing to slide in there before we get out of the news desk and we get to Mike Reagan is a few more announcements from our friends over at Ready Made Toys. They have a few new items in stock, including their new GG1 and N5C cabooses, or caboose. You know, that's one thing I've never been quite sure on. What is the plural of caboose? If somebody wants to drop me a line at notch6@gmail.com and tell me, I would absolutely love to know. It's notchsix@gmail.com. What is the plural of caboose? Caboose sounds right to me, but who knows? Anyway, all right, that's news and events. Let's hop over to our feature interview for this month. So happy to have on the show with me Mike Reagan, who is the head of service for Lionel Trains. Let's put it at Notch 6, hold on to your seat, and get ready to go because we're about to have some fun.
This is the Notch 6 Online Podcast, your home for O-Gauge news, events, and interviews. Here again is Derek Thomas.
Welcome back to the Notch 6 Podcast. Happy to have with me today, almost scared to have with me today, Mike Reagan, who is the head of service for Lionel. Mike, how are you this afternoon?
Still on top of the ground, sucking wind. How are you, Derek?
I'm good, so I can't complain at all. I'll be honest with you, I've been excited and scared all at the same time to do this interview because you and I know each other well enough that I think we're about to have a little bit of fun, and I think the audience will get a pretty good idea of who you are after this, and hopefully they get to know you as well as I do, which is not a bad thing.
That's where the fear comes in. I'm with you.
The first question I always ask everybody is tell me a little bit about growing up and how you became interested in toy trains and kind of how you ended up getting into this hobby.
Oh, well, you know, people ask me all the time how I managed to get to this position, and I continually tell them it was a long saga of bad decisions in rapid succession that landed me here. So, you know, we could just cut to the chase and say that my life has been a long saga of bad decisions. No, seriously, I don't know. According to my dad, when I was 6.5 months old, I was underneath the Christmas tree, smashing around his Lionel Trains that he had as a kid, and my dad's been a model railroader all his life. Unfortunately, he's more into the HO and the HO narrow gauge world, but been around it all my life with my father, and just blossomed into it. Dabbled in HO through middle school, high school, and got out of high school, went to the Army, came back, realized I was having a hard time holding down a job with civilian authority, so I had to go and become self-employed, and got a job building train layouts professionally, and did that for about 3 years. And then after that tapered off, went into opening a train store, opened Train America in '96, a retail store specializing solely in 3-rail. And then from there, that grew into the studios and into the position I've got now. So
Okay.
I'm not really sure how I got into this, but somehow, according to my parents, it's in my blood. So I haven't been able to figure out how to get it out.
The common thread that seems to run through everybody that we've talked through so far is that one door seems to open and you step through that door, and then another one starts to open, and suddenly you wake up one morning and you're doing this for a job. And that seems to be the common thread. So your statement about it being one decision after another, whether it was good or bad, I don't know, but it seems to ring true in this business.
So now, Derek, out of curiosity, those people who stepped through the door, did they also step on the rake? Because that seems to be the common enemy. Every time I step through a door, I step on a rake. That the handle comes up, slaps me in the head. I'm just curious if there's a common thread there, if I'm out in the field by myself.
I tell you what, anybody, and I think you can attest to this, anybody that goes into business for themselves or goes out and takes a risk gets smacked by the rake at least a few times, and that seems to be pretty common as well. So for any of our listeners who are sitting around thinking, I want to open my own train business, prepare to get smacked by the rake at least a couple of times.
That's right. That's good advice.
So, yeah.
And now that we've discouraged everyone from opening a train store.
Right. Okay, let's focus on Train America Studios for a minute. You kind of built your reputation there and really doing upgrades, electronic upgrades. What gave you the background and kind of, I don't know, drove you to pursue that niche of the hobby?
Well, the background, again, came from a long series of bad decisions. I'll tell you a quick story. This is how it worked. In '96, I opened a train store, like I told you, and I had a customer. One of my first customers came in, and he bought a sizable amount of Lionel product. And at the time, it was just when Trainmaster was new, and he picked up command control, and he picked up the C&O Streamline Hudson and the passenger cars and a whole slew of track. Pretty big purchase for the time, and being a new shop owner, it was I was pretty excited. I made a pretty big sale. So so he took it home, and he's having a ball with it. He came back a few weeks later, and he picked up some MTH product. And this was just very, very early on in the MTH years and Proto One, and took it home. And 3 days later, he came back, and he had box after box after box, cardboard box he brought in, set on the counter. He says, "I want my money back." And I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, fantastic! Two giant sales, and I'm celebrating that I did so well selling this stuff, and now I got to give it all back." And basically, the end result was, his doctor told him he had to get a hobby where he could relax, and he bought Brand L and he bought Brand M, and the two weren't compatible, and it was causing him frustration, and he threw in the towel early and got out. And so I made a vow to myself. I said, if within 6 months somebody doesn't come along and do something about this, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something about it. So 2 years went by, and sure enough, really nothing had come about to solve the compatibility issue. So I got a hold of a complete stranger up in Cleveland, a fellow by the name of Louis Niederlander, who has since become an extremely close friend, if not family at this point. And went up to his house. I says, "All right, Louis, I want this stuff here to talk to that stuff there, and if you can figure this out, give me a call." So 6 months later, he gave me a call, and Train America Studios was born, basically. And so how did we get into how did we start Train America Studios? It started because no one else was doing anything about it. So the first product that we ever made was basically a sound conversion board that allowed you to use Proto Sounds 1 in conjunction with TMCC and make your MTH Proto Sounds 1 stuff compatible with Lionel Trainmaster. That's basically where it got its start and how I got into it.
And you guys had a pretty good run. You guys, I'm trying to think, what year was it that you closed the doors over at TA?
It wasn't. It was closed the end of 2008. No, I take that back. It was the end of 2008. It was the end of 2008 that they closed the doors.
Does it still surprise you that there's even though you guys have been closed basically for 5 years now, we watch the forums and things like that. And does it still surprise you that there's a demand for information on your product and that guys are still taking your product and recycling it and basically moving it from engine to engine?
No, I wouldn't say it surprises me. You know, the reality of it is like with most hobbies, it doesn't matter whether it's scale models or remote control or trains or whatever. You know, a lot of times guys will buy, you know, they have an idea in their head. They've got a concept. And so they go out and they buy. And that product that they buy, be it a command control upgrade or, you know, figures from Artista or Woodland Scenics or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. You know, they buy it, it comes in, and by the time it arrives, you know, their mind has shifted gears and they're on to another project. And, you know, some people, myself included, I'm guilty of it, come back to that product in 6-7 years and say, oh, yeah, I remember now, I'm supposed to do this. And so they dive into it. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me at all, you know, and I can say truthfully that I'm guilty of that. You know, there's things I've stumbled across opening boxes up and go, oh yeah, now I remember I bought that 17 years ago. I probably ought to use it now.
I think that holds true for most of us. I think it's almost one of the requirements of being a part of this hobby is that we tend to bounce around from project to project. But that's the neat thing about doing a layout is you can work on one area, say forget it, I'm frustrated, go to a completely different area of the layout, do a completely different project, and then come back. And I know my basement is the same way that there's boxes on the shelf that I know I haven't opened yet.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm not alone. Well, that's strike two now. I'm not alone on opening doors and stepping on rakes, and I'm not alone in buying stuff and forgetting about it.
I tell you what, though, the neat thing is from a train guy's perspective, and a lot of the people who I talk to and that I'm friends with, you are a train guy at heart, whether we like to admit it or not. You had enough of a background walking into your current job at Lionel that you understood what you were getting into, or at least thought you did.
Yeah. I'll give you the thought I did part.
Yeah. Let's switch gears to your current role at Lionel. Improving customer service over the last few years has been your biggest priority. Tell me about some of the largest changes that the service department has gone through since you took over.
And that's going to require some thought. You know, unfortunately, I don't have a list of all the accomplishments. It seems like it's a never-ending battle at times. One of the biggest improvements or changes that we've implemented is in regards to the parts. You know, when I came aboard at Lionel, and don't get me wrong, if any of our listeners out there happen to be former employees of Lionel or worked in service in the past, that what I'm about to say is in no way, shape, or form meant to be degrading. It's certainly not the intent. But what I managed to walk into in service 5 years ago was a bit of a conundrum. You know, there was the process and the flow for ordering parts was a challenge at best for the people inside Lionel and especially for all of the consumers and dealers and service stations outside of Lionel. You know, back in the day, which, you know, for me at this point is anything that was prior to 5 years ago, you know, back in the day, Lionel would produce a service parts catalog. And that service parts catalog was basically the items that were on the website that they printed off and put into a collated format and called it a parts catalog. And what it typically were the consumable parts. Traction tires, light bulbs, smoke elements, smoke units, things like that. Mm-hmm. Wasn't very complete. Very, very little mechanical stuff in there, detailed mechanical stuff. And when it came to fasteners, it was just a complete nightmare. And basically what I'm driving at here is, you know, there were about 5,000 parts, 5,000 individual part numbers that you could get your hands on back in the day. That were advertised externally. And then there were probably about 65 or 70,000 parts that were only viewable within the walls of Lionel. And so one of the challenges we had was how do we solve that? You know, because really what that meant was every single individual in the world who wanted a part for their train had to get on the phone and talk to a customer service representative who then had to wade through the infrastructure they had at the time to try and locate that part. And so you had a lot of inconsistencies. Let's just, for an example, Derek calls Lionel and says, I need a wheel for my locomotive. And you describe it as a big black wheel with spokes. That's fantastic, Derek. Is this a Hudson? Is it a Burke? Okay, as we've determined it's a Hudson. Well, which is it? Is it the front driver? Is it the rear driver? Is it the center driver? Is it blind? Is it flanged? Does it have a traction tire? God only knows. So, we'd send you, someone from Lionel would send you a wheel, and you'd get the wheel, and it'd be the wrong wheel. And then all of a sudden the people at Lionel were idiots. Oh, they don't know what they're doing. So, to take all of that out of the equation, we basically rewrote the software infrastructure for service, and made it in such a fashion that everything that we do internal here at Lionel, in terms of what we see parts-wise and how we organize parts with exploded view photos and whatnot, is all viewable externally as well. So now, instead of you having to get on the phone to call us, you can jump on your computer 24/7, 365, and see everything that we can see internally at Lionel, plus all of the exploded view photos and all of those that we created on the replacement part site, which is, to date, is over 9,800 individual exploded view photos with call-outs. And of course, every part that we have in inventory has its own individual photo, so you can clearly identify the part. And I'd say that was probably one of the single biggest accomplishments that we've implemented since coming on board. Now the onus is basically on you, because you have the product. You know what part you need. You jump on the web at your convenience, punch in your product number or your cab number, pull up the exploded view list, see the part in the exploded view photo, identify it as, part number 17, jump down to 17 on the list, click on the camera icon, and there the part opens up. You're holding it in your hand. You see it on the computer. This is the part I need. You can order it online. Within 24 hours, your order is shipped out. And, depending upon how far you are from Ohio, 2-3 days, you've got it in your hands, you're ready to go. Whereas before, it was, 3 to 4 weeks was not uncommon for a turnaround time on part orders. And then, of course, order accuracy was a whole different story.
Right. And I can attest to it. It was funny. I was just having a conversation with a customer today talking about, a part we were looking for a specific engine that got damaged in transit. And one of the neat things that we found is I can get on my computer, he can get on his computer, and we can be looking at the same diagram within a matter of minutes and exchanging part numbers over the phone, whereas if you go back 6-7 years, that was impossible. And so, it's funny how much, now that we're used to it, we take it for granted, but what a leap forward in terms of just, being able to communicate. And I'm sure it's easier for your, CS reps as well, that the customer comes to you at least slightly more informed than they did before.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Plus, the beauty of it all being electronic is, if something changes, let's say we have a traction tire, and it's part number ABCD, and it becomes obsolete, or we find a problem with it, or who knows what the circumstances are, and we determine that it needs to be replaced with a different product number. With, a couple clicks of the mouse, I can change it on that list, and it's updated instantaneously, because again, everything you're seeing on the part site is basically our infrastructure internally. So I click a change now, it changes on your screen the next time you load that page. So instead of having, 5,000, 10,000 parts catalogs in circulation and having to mail out constant updates every time 1 or 2 parts change, 2 clicks of the mouse, it's updated, and, we don't have to go to the printer at all.
That's really cool. And like I said, it's made a big difference, not only in my world, but I know a lot of customers and people in the hobby who we talk to, it's made a big difference as well. And like I said, that's just, you and I have talked enough. That's one of the largest things, but there's so many other things that have changed behind the scenes in the last few years. And really, a lot of people have picked up on it and can tell that there's a night and day difference between, 2013 and between 2005. And so, I know you hear it a lot, but kudos to you and your employees for making such a huge difference.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't take all the credit. I just provide some leadership. I've got a great staff of technicians and customer service reps and parts guys that really bust their hump every day to make all this happen. Fortunately, I just get to take all the credit.
Right. You're the star of the show. For our listeners who are newer to the hobby, when something goes wrong with a locomotive or set, what are some common areas that they need to be checking on before they pick up the phone and get on with your customer service reps to figure out what's wrong?
Well, one of the big things that we've really pushed for is the self-help. We've done that through the video media. Folks who have new products, and they have an issue with it, first thing to do is check the web. Go to the Lionel product finder, punch in your product number, and see if there's a video. Watch the video. Unfortunately, the technology that we're putting in our trains pretty much exceeds the memory capability of most people, and myself included, as much as I hate to admit that. But technology changes so quick. And so folks that, know how to run a train conventionally, that's fantastic. Those who know how to run a train conventionally doesn't mean that you know all the ins and outs of command control or legacy, or, you're just a beginner, whatever it is. So there's a lot of useful tips, tricks, and hints that are on those videos. You watch those videos, 9 times out of 10, most of the things that appear to be a problem can be solved relatively quickly. Inside Lionel, inside service, we have a catchphrase we use. We throw operator error around a lot because, more than anything, it makes us feel good. Really, 9 times out of 10, it's usually an operator error problem. Customer didn't read the manual, misinterpreted the manual. Watch the video, do what it tells you, and 9 times out of 10, you're good. And if you got a call, well, that's what we're here for. Right.
Now, so what you're saying, as much as all of us as men hate to hear this, is you're actually saying read the instructions.
Well, look, Derek, it's a sign of weakness for any male to read a manual. And I recognize that because, believe it or not, I am a male, which is why we made the videos. It's a compromise. You're not really reading the manual. You're more or less watching a movie, which, if you could get a remote set up with your computer, it'd be the perfect combination, right? You get to watch it, you get to watch a movie and learn about your train all in the same process. And you don't have to read anything. It's fantastic. And that's why if you just get your computer to pop popcorn out of the USB drive, we'd be set.
Well, I guess we're going to have to settle as that for a compromise for the meantime, because like I said, no one wants to read the manual, even though you might actually learn something, but Lord forbid you actually have to study it.
That's right. And, just so you know, for future reference, the popcorn out of the USB drive, that'll be in legacy version 2.1. So when that software upgrade comes out, we'll be popping popcorn out of the memory module drive in your legacy base.
I tell you what, I know a lot of guys who have taken their old ZWs and turned them into arc welders, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not so intentionally, but why not do popcorn from a legacy remote?
Yeah, absolutely. It only makes sense. We've been able to jumpstart a lot of people into their own home-based welding business with a $400 investment. What more could you ask for?
This is why I love talking to you, and this is almost what I was afraid of about this interview, but it's good fun. The videos that we're talking about, where's the best place to find those?
Best place to find the videos. We've got a YouTube channel, and I'll be honest. I pump them up on YouTube simply because I don't want to have to maintain all that storage space for those videos. But honestly, the best place to find the videos is you go to Lionel.com and hover over customer services, and the fourth option down is a tag that's got a little new icon next to it. It says instructional videos. And if you click on that, all, I don't know, whatever it is, 197 some odd videos are there, and it's searchable by product number, by video class, whether it's an instructional video, tutorial, product overview, etc. And it's a nice little search engine, loads a nice little thumbnail with a description and tells you when it was posted, and you can watch it all right there at Lionel.com.
Okay. And it seems like, okay, you're just shy of 200 videos. It seems like this is becoming a pretty common thing. Can we kind of expect to see this continue in the future?
Yeah, as long as we don't have to get into any kind of fancy, you start doing any kind of fancy editing. It's really, I almost hate to say it, but I'll be sitting at my desk working on something and get a phone call and someone will have a question and I'll think, I have a video on that. So I'll jump up, run over to the video room, fire up the camera, do it, hand it over to Phil, and he'll take care of the editing, which is, sometimes a 20, 30-minute process. And an hour and a half after the thought process went through my head, it's live on the web. So
oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really slick. It's a great media, and it's a fantastic tool, and it really allows you to get the information out there quickly. We started telling people in the beginning the reason we made the videos is because I didn't want to have to explain it more than once, but that hasn't worked out real well for me so far.
Right. One of the things I always try to do, especially with people that are in the business side of this, is try to kind of dig a little bit of information out of you guys. What are some ideas that you'd like to implement within the customer service department in the next year that you can actually share with us?
Oh, well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to make all the trains fix themselves so that we can alienate ourselves to the point of unemployment.
Awesome.
This way we can take the financial responsibility of a service department off the books for the company, and maybe I'll get a bonus, and more than likely I won't. So that'd be really nice if we could just make trains that fix themselves. But seriously, some of the things that we want to do, I want to try and do the service station training through the video media. That's something that we're actively pursuing and trying to document all that. It just, when you're doing it from an instructional standpoint where there's a lot of technical data, it takes a lot longer to make sure you got all your ducks in a row. So for those of you out there that are listening that want to attend the service training, it's happening. It's just happening much slower than we'd like it to. And so that's one of them that we're doing. The other one we're doing is one of the things that we'd like to start doing at Lionel is we'd like to start having people register their products when they purchase it to activate their warranty. And, this way it'll give us basically a little tracking data on individual customers and help us build a trend to see if there's any, if there's a specific group of products or a specific group of customers for that matter, that seem to have a recurring trend that, you've got, this guy is continually blowing through smoke units. What's the deal? Is it too much fluid? Is there a trend there, something that we can use to identify the problem, contact the customer, and help them solve it, before it becomes a problem with future products. That's one of them. And then the other biggest thing that we're doing is going back to that parts initiative. The biggest challenge that we have is going forward, we're fine on parts. It's the stuff that wasn't recorded, long before we came on board here in service as it is today. Stuff from 96 through about 2007, products that are in there that have gaps where there's just no part lists. I mean, chances are we have the parts. There's just no one singular part list you can go to find all the specific parts for one engine or product. So, the big push is keep working on those older part lists and getting that stuff documented. So, guys that have products out there, if they want to work on it on their own, they jump on a web, they find the part they need, they order it, they get it, they fix it, they're done. As opposed to, where it is now, you can't find it, you got to call, and honestly, we don't have it. If you don't find it on the web, we typically don't have it internally, so it becomes a fishing trip. You start looking for one that's laying around to see if you can extract the part from it. So, just staying diligent on getting these older part lists done. That's probably the single biggest thing. I think once we get to a point where all of the products have part lists in the system, that'll actually be that'll be an accomplished milestone. We've hit a few milestones so far, in that, just about every scale diesel that we've produced has a part list. Every scale steam engine has a part list. All of our passenger car series, all of our different types of passenger cars, from roughly about 2,000 at present, all have part lists. So, it's nice it'll be nice to say we have a part list for absolutely everything. Then the next challenge, of course, will be, do we have those parts? So, there's no shortage of challenges and things to implement, that's for sure.
Well, sounds like you guys are going to be busy for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, story of my life.
All right, time for some fun questions. And this one, I'm curious to see your answer to this one. What's the strangest repair that you've encountered in your time in the service department?
Here at Lionel?
Yeah. Or you know what? Let's broaden this out. Strangest repair you've encountered, period.
Strangest repair I've encountered, period. Well, I'm gonna have to take you back to the days of TAS. I had a customer send me he sent me an SD80 or SD90 Mac. It was one of those really long modern diesels. It was either an 80 or 90, and I don't remember who made it. Now that I think about it, I do remember who made it, but it doesn't matter. So the guy had converted it to command control with one of our conversions, and he didn't follow the instructions on the smoke unit, and the smoke unit had two 16-ohm elements in it.
Okay.
No, it wasn't that. Maybe it was two 16-ohm elements. At any rate, it was brand M, and it was a PS2 engine. He had converted it to command control, and he didn't follow the instructions, and just wired the smoke unit direct. And at any rate, he turned the smoke unit on, and of course, a giant blue flame shot out of the stack. But the best part of it, the best part of all was there was a hole about, I'd say almost an inch in diameter of just molten melted plastic in the shell, because apparently he turned it on and went to dinner and then came back sometime later to find this large brown-black molten hole in the top of his diesel where the top of his shell had melted this crater, if you will, in the roof of the engine, and it conformed itself to the smoke unit itself. So,
wow.
He had sent it to us, and the complaint was your command upgrade is defective. And I'm looking at this, and we all had a good laugh, and we actually had to take the shell off of the frame with a hammer, because the plastic had melted onto the smoke unit so bad that we had to crack it. We were in there with side cutters and yeah, I would say that's probably the single strangest repair that I've seen to date. That's probably the best one I've seen to date.
Now, the funny thing about that is, in real life, that actually gets mimicked. Some of the earlier EMDs are known for turbocharger fires. Is that a new product feature that we can expect to see within Lionel equipment within the next year or two, or is operating turbo unit fire?
Well, technically, all Lionel scale diesels have that problem, because if you think about it, a turbocharger failure is, you've got flames coming into your turbo, and then they're spun around, and actually it's the exhaust that spins the turbo, and then that flame comes out the stack. So really, either Lionel is mimicking all of the unrealistic poor emission-controlled diesels ever produced in our entire product line because of the amount of smoke they produce, or the diesel just, the actual prototype just runs so poorly because you're totally defeating the purpose of forcing in cold air. You're forcing in hot flames. So, I'm sure that flame eats that oxygen, and what you get is a diesel that doesn't perform. But,
I think the bottom line is what it comes down to is smoke and fire is just cool, especially when it's on a model train layout.
That's right. It's the Tim Taylor effect.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, another fun question. Favorite railroad?
It's a toss-up between Rio Grande, standard gauge and narrow gauge, and Burlington Northern. Somewhere in between the three of them. Well, 2/3 of them.
Okay. And then one more, since we're going to air this during York Week. Favorite place to eat while you're in York?
My hotel room.
So are you telling me that you're as antisocial as you sound?
Favorite place to eat in York? I don't know that I have a favorite place in York. This will be let's see, April 2013 will be my 37th consecutive York, and I will be turning 40 after York. So clearly, I have some issues. I don't know that I have a favorite place to eat in York. Let's say the Eagle's Nest, because we seem to end up there every trip. So I'd say probably the Eagle's Nest is a good place to eat.
I've got to tell a story about you real quick. The first time I met you, well, actually, we had
Are you
met
sure
before,
your listeners are ready to hear this?
Yeah, I think they deserve to hear this. The first time I went out to dinner with you, which was actually just last summer, everybody orders off the menu, and Mike here orders the largest burger on the menu, and without the bun. This thing had to be, what was it, like almost a full pound of meat.
I think it was more than that, actually, yeah.
Whatever it was ridiculous. And
but
you and I have
it is important to note that I was on a no-carb, high-protein diet at the time, so I figured, hey, if one burger patty's good, then seven's got to be better.
The funny thing is, I have a photo of it somewhere running around here, and the size of that burger is ridiculous. Maybe I'll post that on our Facebook page just to prove how ridiculous it is.
It would be fantastic if you accidentally deleted that before you got it on the Facebook page.
Okay, well then I guess we're not going to show that one off on the Notch 6 Facebook page. All right, one last thing before I let you go. You've served in the military, and as a way to honor veterans, you've installed kind of a small bonus for veterans who need repair on their Lionel equipment. Can you talk about that for a second?
We've got a lot of troops deployed around the world right now, and it seems like the country goes in spurts. Some major event happens, and everybody's patriotism boils up to the surface, and everyone flies their flags. And there's a lot of fanfare for the troops that are coming back, especially those that are wounded in combat and have special needs when they get back. But there's a lot of guys out there who either served during peacetime or, deployed to other parts of the world where, in its time there was a conflict. And those guys, in my opinion, deserve to be recognized as well. And, it's just our way as an American company and someone who, like you said, is a veteran. I'd like a little, and this maybe sounds, I don't know, arrogant or selfish, but it's not a bad thing to have someone say thanks every once in a while for your service. And this is just a way for us at Lionel to say thank you for serving your country. And it's just really a sign of gratitude is really what it boils down to. If you look at our customer base, probably a good percentage of our hardcore dyed-in-the-wool train addicts are veterans. So, it works out real well for them. And, if you've served in any branch of the U.S. Armed Forces at any point in your life or currently serving, it's just a way for us to say thanks. It's a prepaid shipping label to Lionel for any product that's under warranty. And then, with all repairs, Lionel picks up the return shipping back to the customer. But it's just a little something to say thanks to, for your service by prepaying the shipping on the way in.
Very cool. All right, that's Mike Reagan. I tell you what, we survived. This was fun. So we will definitely have you back on in the future because I'm sure there are plenty of things that we could talk about. And you know what? I'll make you an offer here, Mike. If you ever decide to change careers, you can come move to Indiana with me, and we'll have the Mike and Derek Railroad Comedy Hour every week. How does that sound?
That sounds all right. That sounds all right. Just remember one thing, Derek. The anticipation of pain is always worse than pain itself. So as much as you feared the pain of this interview, it wasn't as painful at the end of the day.
No, it wasn't.
But I appreciate being able to scare you that much.
Absolutely. Everybody, that's Mike Reagan. Mike, thanks for coming on and doing the show. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time, Derek. I appreciate it.
And that right there, friends, is why I do this show. Good friends like Mike Reagan that make me laugh and make me enjoy this hobby even more. That's it for this month's episode of Notch 6. As always, if you've enjoyed the show, make sure to give us reviews on iTunes. And biggest thing of all is tell your friends. I think the show has a lot of great things to offer, a side of the hobby that not a lot of people get to see. So make sure and share the show with your friends. Send them a link. If you're having trouble getting a hold of the show, drop me an email at notch6, that's NOTCHSIX, @gmail.com, and I'll do what I can to make the show as accessible to you and your friends as possible. So that's it for this time. Everybody who's going to York, have fun, and we'll see you next time on Notch 6.
Thanks for listening to Notch 6. You can find us on Facebook for all the latest news and previews of our next show. Be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes so you'll receive the show as soon as it's posted. If you have any questions or comments, email notch6@gmail.com. That's NOTCHSIX@gmail.com. We'll see you again soon. Until then, be sure to keep it in Notch 6.